सहनावतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं कर्वावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु
गुरुदेवो महेश्वरः
गुरु साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः। ॐ सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणि विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा। कार्पण्यदोषोपहतः स्वभावः पृच्छामि त्वां धर्मसम्मूढचेताः यः श्रेयस्यानिश्चितं ब्रूहि तन्मे शिष्यस्तेऽहं शाधिमां त्वां प्रपन्नम्। ॐ वाङ्मे मनसि प्रतिष्ठिता मनो मे वाचि प्रतिष्ठितम् आविर्भावीर्म एधि वेदस्य म आणिस्तः श्रुतं मे मा प्रहासिः अनेन अधीतेन अहोरात्रान् सन्दधामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारम् अवतु अवतु मा अवतु वक्तारम् अवतु वक्तारम्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येम अक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गे स्तुष्टुवाग्वं स्वस्तिनोभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति न पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्ताक्षररिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ अहं वृक्षस्य रेरिव कीर्तिपृष्ठं गिरेरिव ऊर्ध्वपवित्रो वाजिनीव स्वमृतमस्मि द्रविडगुं सर्वर्चसं सुमेधा अमृतोक्षतः इति त्रिशङ्कुर्वेदानुवचनम्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। We'll do the chanting of the shlokas.
Narayan, everyone. Good to see you.
Narayan. ॐ श्री परमात्मने नमः। अर्जुन उवाच जायसी चेत् कर्मणस्ते मता बुद्धिर्जनार्दन तत्किं कर्मणि घोरे मां नियोजयसि केशव व्यामिश्रेणेव वाक्येन मोहयसीव मे तदेकं वद निश्चित्य येन श्रेयोऽहमाप्नुयाम्। श्रीभगवानुवाच लोके अस्मिन् द्विविधा निष्ठा पुरा प्रोक्ता मया नघ ज्ञानयोगेन साङ्ख्यानां कर्मयोगेन योगिनां न कर्मणां नारम्भात् नैष्कर्म्यं पुरुषोऽश्नुते न च संन्यसनादेव सिद्धिं समधिगच्छति न हि कश्चित् क्षणमपि जातु तिष्ठत्य कर्मकृत् कार्यते ह्यवशः कर्म सर्वप्रकृतिजैर्गुणैः कर्मेन्द्रियाणि संयम्य य आस्ते मनसा स्मरन् इन्द्रियार्थान् विमूढात्मा मिथ्याचार स उच्यते नियतं यस्त्वेन्द्रियाणि मनसा नियम्यारभते अर्जुन कर्मेन्द्रिय कर्मयोगम् असक्त सवशिष्यते नियतं कुरु कर्म त्वं कर्मज्यायो ह्यकर्मणः शरीरयात्रा विचते न प्रसिद्ध्येद कर्मणः यज्ञार्थात् कर्मणो अन्यत्र लोकोऽयं कर्मबन्धनः तदर्थं कर्म कौन्तेय मुक्तसङ्गसमाचरः स यज्ञा प्रजा सृष्ट्वा पुरोवाच प्रजापतिः अनेन प्रसविष्वध्वम् एष्वस्त्विष्टकामधुक्. And for this week, we'll do Shlok 11. देवान् भावयतानेन ते देवा भावयन्तु वः परस्परं भावयन्तः श्रेय परं वाप्स्यथ. So देवान देवताओं को, the gods, भावयतानेन, by strengthening or prospering through this action, those gods भावयन्तु वः will prosper you. Parasparam, mutually, bhavayantaha, by strengthening each other mutually. Shreya is kalyan. Param, ultimate. Vapsyata, prapt ho jaoge. You will get to ultimate. You will receive your ultimate benefit by mutually prospering each other. That's Shlok 11 for this week. So in the last couple of classes, we have touched upon the three gunas and their importance, their hold upon us. And we've also come to know that the ignoramus do not realize this truth, and they think that they are the doer of all action. They think I am the cause of what's happening. And in that context, in this world, we've heard this statement a lot of times, like self-made man, right? And it is talked about with a lot of reverence, with a lot of respect. And there's nothing that is actually further from the truth, as we've understood in Gita. There is no concept of a self-made man. When you say that you are a self-made man, first of all, it kicks in so much of ego, and you are completely ignoring what gunas do and what the role of gunas in. So these are some of these, what do you call, the sansaric ways of being, or the thought processes that need to be challenged once you start to learn the truth and you discern what is the reality versus what is the delusion. So self-made man is one of the bigger delusions that we've heard of. So the sages who understand the reality know that all actions are being done by gunas. And then in 3.28, we touched upon the 23 modifications of gunas. We had done that in summary last class also. So at a very high level, it's very important to remember that the gunas are at the top, right? The top three in that chart. But remember that everything else from gunas onward, that little triangle onwards, they are all connected. So they are all coming forth from the three gunas, starting from the subtle body as well as all components of the gross body and this gross world. But on top of all of these gunas sits the sentient nature, the jivatma, the paramatma's ansh. And there is no connection between the two. So gunas and everything else, this entire material world, it does not affect the jivatma at all. The only thing that causes the self to start thinking of itself as part of this material world is its own delusion. That's it. There's nothing else. There's no reality to that connection. In reality, there is no connection between the two. And only that part, that little top thing, is the sentient nature. Everything below that from gunas onwards is insentient. Okay. Right after that, God shot us another warning bell. And this warning bell is going to come again and again. And we've already experienced it so many times. And we've just reached chapter 3, right? And that warning bell was that we are sadhak, not pracharak. We are practitioners and not preachers. The reason it comes again and again is because the danger that we go from practitioner to preacher is very, very real. So we have to be very careful. And that's why he will give us this warning again and again, that please practice this for yourself and not on others. Um, so, so he basically said, okay, now that you understand all of this, you must throw yourself into action, into your duty, with your mind placed in me, which means that your limbs, your actions should be in the sansar, but your mind should constantly dwell only on me. Limbs in the action in the sansar, but mind and bhav is fully dedicated to me. That's how you should do your action. Um, then then Bhagwanji told us that if we understand and take this teaching to our heart, if we fully practice it with complete faith and reverence, it will then basically all things that we do in this world, all work will become his worship. And when we do that, then it will help us attain our ultimate benefit. So again, there was this word used called cavil. Cavil means it's called dosh drishti. That means your mindset is that of fault finding. So when you ask questions, if you ask questions with that concept of fault finding, then Bhagwanji is saying that is of no use. It will block your own progress, nothing else. It doesn't hurt anyone else but your own self. Now, that again does not mean that you shouldn't ask questions, right? That please do not ever take that to be, because as you've seen, this entire Gita has been propounded only because Arjun kept on asking questions, and he will constantly ask questions in answer to which Gita becomes, is being told. So questioning is very important. It is the attitude with which the questions have been asked that needs to be addressed. So you need to ask yourself, am I asking this question to understand something better, to understand, to improve my practice of the principle, or am I asking a question to just to just get into a debate or for intellectual curiosity? There is no place for intellectual curiosity here. There is no place for debate here. The only reason we are here in this class is to strengthen our practice. It is a very practical book. It's a practical thing for us to do. So we have to constantly ask questions and we'll only ask those questions when we actually practice them. You practice it, you do your nam jap, you do your swadhyay, then you do nidhi dhyasan, and then you actually practice it. When you put those principles in practice 100%, you will you'll never always practice them correctly in the first time, right? You will falter in the application. You will falter again and again, and only with each faltering, each time you fall down in its practice and you come back and find out, like, I thought I did this right, but I didn't. But what happened? I didn't get the expected results as per what Gita is saying. Then you will do even better niti dhyasa. That's when your learning will go deeper. With practical, your learning will go deeper, right? It's proper practicals. Then you will ask deeper and more nuanced questions. And that is what Arjun is also doing, and that's what we are supposed to do. So ask questions, but your questions will deepen as you do more practicals. And then Bhagwanji gave us another warning. He said, and another reminder, that if you do not follow these teachings, there is a sure shot path to ruin. There is no other way. You will get ruined one way or the other. Okay, so it's better that we follow these principles. And yet another reminder in 333 that there is no escape from action. Because when we hear all of this, the first time when you learn anything, you come to know anything new, it feels like, oh, it's so difficult, right? It's so difficult to do all of this. It's so difficult to not be attached to results. Then I will definitely get bonded. So constantly your mind, which is trying to find an easy way out, which is trying to find convenience, will always come back and say, okay, can I somehow escape this? Is there a shortcut to things, right? And so Bhagwanji keeps coming back again and again, saying that no, there is no escape from action. So don't even think about it. There is no escape from that. And so if there's no escape from action, then we must do action, but it should be free from attachment and aversion. So in these last two classes, starting from 3.27 to 3.34, he has told us three things that we must be aware of. Actually, two things, with one being the corollary of the second one. So there are two important things he's told us that we need to be aware of while doing action. One, ego. Remember that you are not the cause, you're not the doer, right? Ego. And second, he's talked to us about attachment. Be aware of attachment when you're doing actions and its corollary, aversion. There are another few things that will come out in today's class, and then we will string them together in a sort of an acronym for us to remember, like a small cheat sheet we'll create for ourselves to remember when we are doing actions. So with that, we will now proceed to read Shlok 35.
Reena, am I audible?
Yes, yes, Vijay.
Yeah, one quick question. So there was one concept when past couple of weeks back we were talking, like if you keep repeating again and again, over and over, it will carry over. There is certain vasanas that will carry over from birth to birth. So that is the reason there is some pre-concluded. So if it is gunas, rajoguni type character, it gets carried over, that kind of a thing. When there is no connection between the self and the remaining gunas and so on, how it gets carried over typically?
Very good.
There should be some way of connectivity, right, between the topmost self with the bottom layer that we have talked about. How it get transpired is the question.
Yeah. So there is no real connection. The connection that we perceive is illusory. Okay. And how does that illusion get created? It's like this. When we dream, when we are sleeping and we are dreaming, everything that happens in the dream seems extremely real. The moment you wake up, you realize there was no reality to the dream, right? Even though that dream felt very, very real. So this is similar to that. The Jivatma, the moment it starts to the moment it forgets its real nature, which is God, and it starts to think that this body is its own. The moment it attaches itself to the body, and that's when everything related to the body in the material world becomes attached to it. So then it becomes the bhokta of all the sukh and dukh that happens. It becomes, and it starts to experience the sukh and dukh, even though it is not supposed to. It's all in the mind. The moment you tell yourself, this is who I am, that's who you become. That's how strong our thing is. But it is an illusion. It is not real. It is something that you think of. The moment you turn on the light and the darkness goes, that's when you suddenly realize that it is not real. So just to give you another example, there's something that we have talked about before. When there is darkness, and in darkness you see a rope lying around, your mind may think that it is a snake. If your mind thinks it is a snake, your entire body will react as if it is a real snake. The fear, the thoughts about how to escape, all of those things are going to become very real, and you will act as per that. When you switch on the light and you see that thing is just a rope, it's not a snake, immediately the delusion goes, and then your being becomes completely different. But even though there is an illusion that it's a rope, that rope is a snake, as long as you are under that delusion, how will you react? How will you behave? You will behave as if it were a real snake, right? In your mind, you will behave, and your body, everything will react as if it's a snake. But it is just an illusion. It's an illusion created in your mind. That is what is the truth here. That is what is being explained. But that, how that illusion gets created and how you break it, that this question will get answered. You will gain even further clarity as we go further in our practice, in our own sadhana. It's a good question, and you will get even more clarity through your own practice.
So one other example, which is when we go and watch a movie, right? We're sitting in a theater and something happens, we feel the emotion of the actors in the movie. We feel their fear, we feel their excitement, we feel their thrill, we cry with them, we get emotional. But is any of it real? No. But we fully experience it, we fully see it, we fully live it, right? Uh, but in reality, what is happening? That a picture is coming onto a screen, the white screen, and we are just attaching ourselves not even to the screen, but to that illusionary picture on that screen. So that screen goes, but the picture stays with us. And similarly, those impressions, when we move from one body to another body, we take impressions that we've seen, that we get attached to when we watch that movie. We leave the theater and technically we go from one body to another body. Those impressions we carry forward.
So the
And
subtle
that's why
body,
the subtle body. So the
Yeah.
mind, body, ahankar, the mind, intellect,
mind, intellect, and ahankar.
mind, intellect, and ego. We take those impressions along with us.
So as
So-
long as that treasure chest is not empty, the Jivatma carries that subtle body with it to the next world. And
So-
that is what causes that continuity of sanskars. That is what creates the continuity of your actions and the bondages that come from them, the consequences.
And the reason why and that's why we talked about it last time as well, we've forgotten who we really are, because we have spent so much time just watching movie and being enamored by the movie that we've forgotten our true nature and our true self. So that's why the game is essentially antakaran ki shuddhi, clean that mind, intellect, and ego. And when you start doing it, you will start reflecting divinity. You'll start reflecting your real self rather than reflecting back what the sansar wants you to be or what you want to be for sansar. You break that cycle.
Another example to give this sense, right, is so Jivatma is what is holding on to the subtle body and it carries with it, right? The day it understands the reality and it says, oh, this body, the subtle body or the gross body is not really me, and it drops it, that's it. It stops to have a rebirth. Now, what causes it? To give you an example of that is one of the ways to capture a parrot or this thing, a monkey. I'll give you both the examples. So, how do you? One of the easier ways to capture a monkey is to keep a vessel with very small mouth, and you keep some nuts inside it. So when the monkey understands that there is nuts inside this vessel, he will put his hand inside. It's a thin, face. So it will put it inside there, and then it will grab all the nuts. Now it has created a fist, and that fist is unable to come out. Okay, and now the monkey is stuck there, and it is unable to take his hand out, and then he gets caught. The only thing he has to do to get out of that and to escape is to just let go and take his hand out. It is in his hand, but he's under a delusion right now that, oh my God, I cannot leave it. This is very important for me. And so he puts his hand inside and does not let go of the nuts. That is the only thing that gets him caught. This is exactly what happens to Jivatma, that it is unable to get this and it carries this around and gets captured in the sansar. The moment it realizes the truth, oh, this is not for my real good, and he releases it and takes the hands out and it goes away. So it is your own delusion. You are keeping yourself here, nothing else. Similarly, a parrot, right? The way they capture a parrot is there are two sticks that are kept, and on that stick there is a string that is attached with something to something to attract the parrot to. And the way that string is attached is it is twisted. So the moment the parrot lands, the parrot lands on it and holds onto it, that thing gets untwisted, and basically the way it will work is that the parrot goes upside down and it is still holding on to that rope. Okay, it is still holding on to that rope, but now it is upside down. Now he will not let go of that because he's afraid that if he lets go, he's going to fall to the ground and he's going to get hurt. Okay, he has forgotten that he's a parrot, it can fly. So if he leaves that, all he has to do is leave it and fly away. But he's too afraid, so he does not let go. He keeps on holding to it tight, and all you have to do is to go and capture it. That's how the parrot gets captured.
And these are very strong analogies with us and sansar.
So only we are holding on to it. Our Jivatma holds on to this, but this is not real. You can just leave it and you can let go. So that is what keeps, that's what creates that connection, illusory connection.
I have one question here. Like, suppose I know this now that, what I'm thinking. So suppose, somebody tells me something or behaves in a manner which I felt that was not right, or I was disrespected and all. But again, the suffering is within me because I am thinking for his or her action. And I know that I should not feel bad. Why does it take time to, get out of that? I mean, cage that you're talking about, or that mindset where you know that this feeling is wrong, and because you didn't do anything, it was the other person's action. And what is in my control is how I feel about it. Like I should respond with that negative emotion, or ignore it and be with my own positive conscience and, the happy self generally. So, why does it take time in terms of, in spite of knowing to that this is how I should be?
Because these are impressions from many, many, many lives of ours. So right now, the first step of change is awareness, which you seem to have brought about by reading the scriptures, by understanding, by implementing. Slowly, you start implementing it regularly. Automatically, your ability to deal with it will become stronger and stronger. And then those situations, even if they come to you, they won't register to you anymore, because you've risen above that. Your antakaran, your ego no longer gets triggered to perceive it as disrespectful. Your ego just triggers as that, oh, other person is so unhappy. That's why he's saying rude things or whatever else it is. How can I help? Right? There are levels to our sadhana. The first level definitely is awareness, and then it takes time for us to build that muscle to respond. But as we progress, as you continue to work on your antakaran to make it clearer, you will start reflecting the real. So in the very next shloka, the shlok after, there is an analogy given of your mind, intellect, and ego, your antakaran, being like a mirror. It's just that the mirror is fully covered with dust. So what happens when it's fully covered with dust? It does not reflect your divinity. So when we do antakaran ki shuddhi, as you're doing now, you will just start removing the layers of the dust. And then your perception of situations will become so much better, because you'll be reflecting divinity in those situations. You'll be reflecting these principles in those situations. And yes, it takes time and effort, but with practice, it will just become easier and easier and easier.
And why does it take time is because, if you've written, there's a piece of paper, right? If it is fully written on, you cannot write a new story on that paper, right? You first need to erase it. Now, if you have written on that paper with like again and again and again, then the number of times you'll have to erase it for it to become completely clean, it will take time, right? You have to slowly erase it. If there is a stain on a floor, it doesn't get, it is not that easy to remove it, right? If it's a small stain, it's just put in, you are able to clean it. But if that stain has stayed on for a very long time, then you know that you have to, maybe go through the cleaning 4, 5, 6 times. And then only that stain gets cleaned. So it is that practice. If you know that you have to get up at 5 a.m. in the morning, it's good for you to get up in the morning to exercise. But you know it, but you still don't do it, right? Because it takes time for your body, your gross body, to adapt to the new message that is coming from your mind. Your mind will quickly adapt. Yeah, I know this is right. Your mind will change, but your gross body doesn't change. It takes time for the gross. It's like a small thing, and it's a law of nature, right? If it's a small thing, only a small amount of force will make it change its direction. If it's a very big thing, then the amount of force required for it to change its direction, right? The law of physics, a body will keep going in the same direction unless an external force is applied to it to change its direction. And the amount of force that needs to be applied to it is directly proportional to the mass of the object. So which means that gross body, which is obviously more, gross compared to the subtler, so you need more energy to be applied to it. So you need to apply that energy from your mind every day, constantly, to change the direction of your body of doing certain things.
Okay, so basically I understand the first step is that you kind of remove all your past emotional pattern and the way you think about situation and things, and then practice this new way of looking at things in new perspective.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Should
So
we
we'll
get,
do Shlok 35.
should we get Anita to read, considering she's wearing a beautiful sari? Are you coming from somewhere, or you're going to go somewhere after this?
Oh no, it is 11 o'clock in the night. I just came from Balaji Kalyanam.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
lovely. It's a beautiful
I
song.
had to hurry up because I didn't want to miss. I missed so many classes over the last couple of months. So I straight from in the door I came and sat. So
Your commitment's amazing,
Yeah,
Anita.
yeah.
I
Naman
must
to
say.
that.
Yeah.
So
Even
let's
looking like that you are coming from temple, the divine energy is radiating from your attire and you.
So why don't you read the connection for us, Anita? The connection after Shlok 34.
34. Okay. There is another difficulty even while performing actions free of attachment and aversion. Circumstances arise which compel a thought that perhaps it would have been easier to attempt any other job than the chosen one. This is why Arjuna thought that instead of engaging in the terrible business of war, it would have been better to take a resort to begging. He could thus get rid of all the attachments and aversions. In the answer to this thought, Lord says,
Shreyan swadharmo vigunaha.
Shayan,
So,
give me 1 second. I'm still, getting my.
No worries.
Today I'm all over the place. Sorry, guys.
no worries.
No worries.
Take your time.
See,
Okay.
that's why Krishna ji has chosen you
Yeah.
to start, so that it will help you get into the zone.
Also, you can take your time, and we'll just keep admiring the sari. That's fine.
Thank you. Shreyan Swadharma Mo Vigunaha.
Pardharmat swanushthitat.
Pradharmat Swadashtinat.
Pardharmat
Pardharmat Swanushtitat.
hitat. Yeah, very nice. Swadharme nidhanam shreyaha.
Swadharme Nidanam Shreyaha.
Pardharmo bhayavaha.
Paradharmo Payavaha.
Shreyan is best. Swadharmo, my duty. Vigunaha, without any gun, without any attractiveness. Pardharm, someone else's duty. Swa anushtitat, even though done very well. Swadharme, in doing my duty. Nidhanam, death. Shreya is better or best. Paradharmo, others' duty. Bhayavaha, brings great fear. Let's read.
The duty ordinated spiritually or by custom of one, even though devoid of any appealing quality, in much better than that of another's duty. No matter howsoever well performed, it is better even to die doing one's own duty, for taking on the duty assigned to another is full of grave danger.
Yeah.
One's own duty is preferable to another's duty. In this shloka, emphasis has been laid on the word dharma, customary or spiritually ordinated duty. Though generally translated as religion, the word dharma has a much wider connotation, wider than the concept of worship or ritualistic acts. For example, the dharma of fire is the power to burn. That of the water is its fluidity. That thus the dharma of man is that speciality which enables him to exhibit human qualities. In the struggle of life of man tends to deviate from the path of manifestation of human qualities. Dharma is both the power and the set of disciplines which enables such a man to hold on to these qualities. Worship, study of scriptures, and fall in the category of dharma as righteous disciplines.
So let me explain a little bit here, right? So this shloka is unique because the word dharma has been introduced 4 times in the shloka, right? And so the first part is for us to understand what is the definition of dharma. So dharma is one of those words that cannot easily be translated into English because it's a loaded word. It's a word that represents both the duty, the responsibility you have, as well as the intent, the thought, the emotion, the power that goes in fulfilling that duty. So, for example, if my dharma is to feed a lot of people in this life, right? Then I will be given certain qualities that will allow me to manifest in such a way. If I am aligned to it, I would become a very good cook. But in sansar, it's so easy for us to copy others and look at others and see what they are doing and what they are achieving. And we tend to project our purpose or our own dharma onto them. And we start living their lives. So Bhagwanji here is saying that it is very important for you to do your own dharma badly. You can do that badly, that is okay, and that is better than you doing and copying somebody else's dharma. And the word dharma then extends in the second line to swadharma. Swa means self, mine. And dharma, like I said, represents our purpose, our duty, our unique set of qualities that we've been given to power that duty and to do that duty. And swadharma is essentially us identifying what is our dharma. This journey is not about other people. It is not about others' reflection or others' perception of your potential or your dharma. It is fully about my dharma. And that is something only we can discover for our own selves. And the way we do it is, we've talked about this earlier, is in all our duty and action, have that hierarchy in mind. Purpose, action, purpose, bhav, action, object. Right? So what is the purpose of why you're doing a particular action? Yeah, so I mean, that's what we've read till now. We'll continue reading. Do you want to add something? Okay.
So now, what this really means is that, like he was, Abhinav just talked about, like, how do you define your own duty, right? It's not that difficult, okay? Finding your own purpose, all of those things. It is not as tough as we make it sound. Like, I have to go, take like a break. I have to go go into some kind of a meditation retreat for 2 months to figure it out. It's actually not that difficult. It's very, very straightforward. Your duty is what your VVGP is. That's it. You have every VVGP that comes into your life creates a duty for you, creates a situation for you to do some action which is ordained, which would be considered good under the scriptural connotations. That is your duty. So if you have been put in a certain context where, for example, if your purpose is to feed people, then you will not only be given the vibhutis by Lord to be very good at at cooking or be very good at being with people. It will give you an innate pleasure, an innate happiness to feed people. It will be something that will excite you. It will be something that will drive you, right? So you know you are in line with your purpose. And then you will be attracted to similar kind of jobs or vocations. And what is more, situations will get created in your life that will push you in those directions in a subtle manner. For example, you may live close to somebody who will, or you may come in contact with somebody who will inspire you in that direction. You might end up reading certain book that will inspire you to become a great chef. You may end up connecting yourself to a certain TV show that will inspire to become a great cook. Or or your family circumstances be such that generally hosting and Atithi Devo Bhava is considered a very big thing in your family. So there could be various ways in which God will create VVGP around you for you to find your direction easily. Okay, so you don't have to go out of your way. You don't have to go out of what you are already doing. What you are already doing is your duty. Okay, your VVGP is sending you very strong signals of what your duty is towards your family and everything else. Now, another important thing he says is that Swadharma is Shresht. It is best for you. Why? Why is that Shresht for you? Is because it has been curated very specifically. Your entire VVGP, every single moment of your life, everything that happens in your life, including the people that come in your life, has been very, very specifically, very specially curated only and only for you. No one else in this world will have exactly the same life experience as you. No one else, but only you. Because it has been specifically curated for your learning. There is no localization greater than this. We always talk about personalization and localization in today's world. There is no stronger personalization than this. It has been only curated for one person, not a group of people. And it has been created in such a manner so that you have the fastest way possible for your own uddhar, for you to reach your ultimate welfare. And even the negative things that that you've done in your past life, or the negative karma that you've accrued in your past life, will be manifested by his grace in this world in a manner that will help you progress. So when we talk about bondages, when we talk about karma and its consequences that we have to accept, we always have to remember that nature does its part of playing its rules, playing by the rules. Okay, nature always plays by the rules. Lord has put rules in place and nature will play by its rules. You put your hand in fire, fire will do its dharma of burning your hand. Okay, that's the rule of nature. But Lord does not think of this as just a law. Okay, he dispenses everything with a lot of love. So even if we experience negative things, they aren't as if like, oh, there's a revenge, you did something wrong, so you must, like, there's no justice. Justice is there in the realm of nature. In the realm of Lord, there is only love. So even the negative consequences that you have to experience, he creates situations that if you're connected to him, every single one of them, positive or negative, will only take you forward in your journey and not backwards, if we are connected to him. So that is why our specific life circumstance is best for us, not someone else's. Why is someone else doing this? Why is someone else's work? Somebody else's life, everyone else's life seems easier than our own lives in most cases. Everyone else, it feels like, oh, they are going through a good time. They have so much. They have this, they have that. And my problems are the biggest problems. And that is what Lord is saying, that stay away from that thinking. Your life circumstances and your duty that gets ordained to you because of your life circumstances are very, very good for you. They are the best for you. There's nothing else that can be better than that. So stick to that rather than entertaining thoughts of trying to live someone else's life or thinking that someone else's life is better than ours.
Just to add to it, so just like a fire's dharma is to burn, right? Our soul's dharma, because it's an individualized portion of Bhagwanji himself, our soul's dharma is to go back
Yes,
to Bhagwanji.
absolutely.
So that is the dharma of our soul. That is what it craves. That is what it wants to do.
And that's
That is
the
where-
dharma of humanity. That is
Correct.
being human, to reflect your divinity, which is to go back to your source. That is the dharma of human beings. And then our particular swadharma is the specific road we have to travel on to get to that dharma.
Correct. So yes, so what Tuina very well explained, the VVGP and our personal set of circumstances, this is what we have to go through. And if we do it with the right principles, we will start reflecting divinity and we will go back and we will achieve the purpose of our soul, which is to go back to Bhagwanji. And then we're no longer in that cycle. Continue reading, Anita.
Thus, in this shloka, the word dharma has not been used to indicate a particular denomination or philosophical dogma. It means of it is a means of a manifestation of one's potential divinity. This potential divinity may manifest itself, one as mastery of scriptures, in another as expertise of military science, in the third as a high business acumen, or in like manner in others. It is this manifestation of divinity which is variously known as God realization, self realization, and so on.
Yeah.
In
So Tuina talked about, use this word vibhuti, right? Vibhuti is I think the best translation from the way I understand is a blessing of certain qualities we are born with, certain strengths that we are naturally good at, right? And there's an entire chapter 10, that is just on vibhutis, like how do we get gifted vibhutis, what are the different vibhutis, how do we use them, etc. And in this one line, he makes it so clear that your potential divinity can manifest very differently for different people depending on your dharma. You could be a rocket scientist, or you could be a cook, or you could be a really good businessman. All are equally valuable roles in society. And if you do it with the right principles, allow you to attain divinity. There is no one set success path that we have defined in Sansar, that you have to be, agar a doctor engineer nahi banoge, bhaiya, life is gone.
Yeah, when we were born, right?
Yeah.
When we were going through it, so there were only two paths to success. You either become a doctor or an engineer. There's no third path, right? You do BCom and that's it. You're done for. Unless you go through the CFAs, right? So God is saying there is no such thing. There are no three paths to success. Every one of us
Every
has a
role-
very individual path to success.
So every role, every responsibility, every duty is a way to connect to our dharma and get liberation. You don't have to chase anybody else's work. You don't have to chase anybody else's lifestyle. You don't have to chase anybody else's access to pandits and sants and, like, oh, I should also do arts of living and I should also do this and I should also do that. No, just do your duty with the right principles and take a flight out of here. Please continue reading.
In this shloka, the Lord explains that whatever be customary or spiritually ordinated duty, born of righteous acceptances, inclinations, or uncircumstances, it must be done assiduously and enthusiastically, even though its performance may entail formidable difficulties. Even if one has to face death in doing one's duty, it is highly preferable to escaping from an assigned duty in search of duties wrapped in ease and comfort.
So we always have to remember that Swadharma will lead to liberation and Paradharma will cause bondage.
Yeah.
Can we connect with typical office kind of a nature? Always there is an expectation to scale up, do somebody else's job, to so that's how you will grow, all that kind of thing. There is always there is a saying, right? In typical office structure, you will have to take somebody is not scaling up, not available, and so on. You are expected to do theirs also. How can you?
If it is your, if you are in a circumstance where you have been asked to do some more work other than what you are doing currently, then that situation has been created for you, right? For example, your colleague may fall sick and he's not available, or he's just not available for whatever reasons, or because your HR thinks or your boss thinks that he's not capable of doing what is required to be done in whatever time period, and somebody asks you to step in, right? Then that situation has been created for you to go in and do that work. That becomes your duty. But if you're sitting here doing a certain duty and then craving for someone else's job, like for example, you are a coder and you think, oh, the sales jobs is so easy, no? All they have to do is go talk, 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 and then and they just get all the bonuses. Like what crap, right? I wish I were a salesperson. A salesperson will think, look at HR, they do nothing at all. They just sit around passing judgment on others, and their job is so easy, so cushy. They don't have to go out. I have to be out in the sun meeting people. So painful, so difficult, right? So everybody, when they start thinking about others' job as being easier than theirs, and start thinking about I wish I were doing that, that wishing will not get you there, right? Maybe, yeah, I mean, you have some skill sets, you're being attracted to something else, then maybe go explore. But sitting there thinking, oh my God, my job is so difficult, my thing is so, my life is such a hell, my difficulties are the largest difficulties, and somebody else's life is so easy. Look, they have everything given to them. It always seems so from the outside. It always feels like somebody else's life is so much easier, right? Because you don't know what's going on with them and what difficulties they are facing for their own dharma.
I mean, you shouldn't. So, in to add to it, you shouldn't be, or one shouldn't be choosing or looking at work based purely on ease and comfort. What is the easiest path for me to do it, right? One should do the work because the purpose aligns with you. So, if HR as a role, I may be in sales, but if HR attracts me because I want to help create an environment where people are motivated, productive, and getting the best out of this company, then, and I'm strongly feel about it and I have a lot of ideas, then by all means, I should switch. But if I
Or go and contribute in
or
whatever way you
contribute
can,
or
right?
switch or whatever, right? So always, it's very easy to sit and judge, but that's what we should refrain from. We should align it to purpose. And if that speaks to us on a regular basis very powerfully, then it impels you to action, to make a change.
I just saw Vijay's comment here that God fearing is an oxymoron. That's absolutely true. There is no concept of God fearing, right? I think a couple of classes ago we had said there are some people who are afraid कि भगवान जी देख रहे हैं, right? That Bhagwan ji is omnipresent, and there are others who are comforted by the fact that Bhagwan ji sab dekh rahe hain. So you should be on the other side. And God is not a person who's sitting there in judgment. Okay, don't think of God as this powerful force that's going to sit there in judgment, as sometimes a lot of scriptures make it sound like heaven, hell, blah blah. He is really the most benevolent benefactor that we can ever have. His only purpose is to help us get to our ultimate welfare in the fastest way possible, in the best way possible. As long as we recognize that and we connect to him with that, we will start seeing how his benevolence comes in all or in all VVGP, whether it feels like it is favorable or unfavorable from a materialistic point of view. But ultimately, we'll realize that everything that happens is favorable for us. Everything. is a favorable activity, because he is doing everything to help us and not to like punish us. There is no concept of punishment from God's point of view. There is justice, but there's always that, okay, this justice has to be meted out. How do I do it in a manner that helps you even better, even faster, even like, that's the way the justice gets meted out.
Yeah, so in chapter 16, we will, Kavita would know this because she's read it, that we study divine qualities and demonical qualities. And the first divine quality is fearlessness. And Kavita would know, we spent, I think, an entire class or maybe 2 classes just talking about fearlessness. Because we're just like, how does it come? Where does it come? How does it manifest? So God fearing is definitely an oxymoron. But if you actually think about it, you're not fearing God. You're fearing losing something in sansar if you don't please God. If you actually go down to thinking why you're God fearing. But anyways, we'll come to that in its own course. Should we get Rishabh to read?
Rishabh?
Hi, yes.
Connection.
Here, Arjun raises a question which arises in the mind of every thoughtful person. Everyone knows what one has to do, and what one always wants to do, wants to be righteous, and one always wants to be righteous in one's actions. One knows that doing actions with a sense of dedication will invest the action with divinity. But even knowing all this, one commits sins, though seemingly against one's best judgment. So Arjun asks,
Arjun Uvacha
Arjun Uvacha,
Ath Kena Prayuktoyam
Ath Kena Prayuktoyam
Papam Charati Purushaha
Papam Charati Purushaha
Anichannapi Varshneya
Anichannati Varshneya
Baladeva Niyojitaha.
Baladiva Niyojitaha.
Ath is then, came, how. Prayuktoyam, affected by this. Papam, sin. Charati, आचरण करता है, behaves. Purushaha, person. Annichanapi, even when not wanting to. Varshneya is reference to Krishna ji. Baladeva, under the force of. Niyojitaha, लगाए हुए की. What has been organized under.
Arjun said, what impels a man to commit sins, O Varshaneya, even against his wishes, as if constrained to do so by some force?
So this question that is being asked, so I find it so fascinating that it's literally a more aggressive version of the question that Anupama asked, right? That even though you know what to do, why are you compelled to still do it? And out here, he's just asking a more aggressive version that even though I know this is a wrong thing for me to actually do, why am I still compelled to do it? And that's, it only reinforces that the journey Arjun goes through is the journey we go through. Like this is being shown again. But please go ahead and read.
Impulsion into sin. Sometimes there is the feeling of strong impulsion into sin or immoral conduct, even against one's wishes. It is necessary to know what that power is, which forces one into sinful conduct involuntarily. In most cases, this inducement arises in the process of earning a livelihood or in fighting one's opponents. When a desire for financial gain acts as a stimulus for immoral conduct, the gains by that conduct are reaped by the dependent beneficiaries. But the subtle effects of the immoral conduct are carried on to be worked out in future lives of the performer.
Yeah. So it's quite self-explanatory, right? The question. And I think all of us will have many instances where we've sat back and said, why did I behave that way? Why did I react that way? Why did I snap back? ठीक है यार. And like, especially in heated moments with your partner or at work or at office, you're stressed because you're not hitting your numbers, and then you lay it back to the team. You go back and you're like, why did I do that way? And the analogy to think of, and always think of, is when you squeeze an orange, what comes out? The essence of the orange, which is orange juice. When life squeezes us, it's our own essence that will come out, which is whatever we have been attracted, thinking, putting into our system, that's what gets squeezed out. So now Bhagwanji will give us a very clear understanding of how our actions get defined and how they're influenced. Should we get that to read? No.
Naina, will you read with us?
Connection. Explaining what impels a person into sin, the Lord replies,
Shri Bhagavanuvacha
Shri Bhagavanuvacha
Kama Esha Krodha Eshaha
Kama Esha Krodha Eshaha
Rajoguna Samudbhava
Rajoguna Samudbhava
Mahashano Mahapapma
Mahashano Mahapapma
Vidyena Miha Varinam.
Vidyena Miha Vairinam.
Kam is desire, Esha is this, Krodh, anger, Rajoguna Samudbhava, born from Rajogun, Mahashano, all consuming, Mahapapma, big sinner, Vidyena Miha, 3 words, Vidhi Ena Iha, Vidhi Ena Iha, Vidyena Miha, know this to be, Varinam, enemies.
The Lord says, it is the desire with its corollary, anger, that is born of Rajoguna, and which is all-consuming, most vicious and vile. Know this to be your bitter enemy.
So this is a very important shloka, and you will keep coming to this shloka as well, because it, in a nutshell, defines exactly why we get onto that slippery slope. So the first level of the hierarchy here is the guna. So the guna here mentioned is Rajagun, right? And we know there are 3 gunas: Satagun, Rajagun, and Tamagun. Rajagun is the guna that represents dynamism, constant action, constant achievement, one result after the other. I want this promotion, I want this, I want to go one goal after the other, right? That sense of energy that we have, that competition that we have, that is essentially Rajaguni behavior, right? And Rajaguni behavior results in more attachment towards desire. And if you then don't get your desire, it results in anger. And that becomes a vicious cycle. And these two can easily, as we were reading in the previous shloka, is
the power.
It's the power which will very easily cloud your judgment. So like a businessman will justify bribing because he's like, the whole world does it. But his desire is, boss, my company has to make 30% this year, whatever said and done, chalo, I'm happy to put 2 lakhs under the table or 10 lakhs under the table. At least my business will grow. It's that Rajaguni behavior. They're so deluded. They're so happy with that justification because they've got their end desire, which is 30% growth, regardless of the consequence of the system, the prarabdha that they have created for themselves and for society in general, right? And that's what this shlok highlights, is your real enemy is not out there. Our real enemy is our own desire and our own anger. because they both essentially stem from our Rajoguni behavior to be liked, to achieve, to be in action, etc., etc. So we'll read about all of this step by step in this shloka.
And as we read this, we will revise the shlokas 262 and 263, where we had defined the slippery slope to hell. So this directly speaks to those two shlokas, and we will define and we'll revisit the slippery slope to hell as we go through the shloka.
Yeah. Should we open it now? Or?
No, we can read this and we'll talk about it.
I read?
Yeah.
Desire, anger, rajoguna, enemy. These four important words are explained below. Desire, the expectation of getting pleasure from things of the world, gives rise to a strong wave in the mind to somehow possess them. It is called kama, desire. It is a gross form of the sense of liking and temptations hidden in the mind. Whatever is liked by the mind gets attached to it, and the attachment generates a desire to possess it. Anger. An obstruction in the way of getting an object of desire gives rise to anger. This is the gross form of the sense of dislike, burning in the mind. Whatever is disliked by the mind causes aversion, which finds an expression in the shape of anger. Anger is an impulse arising in the mind, either when desire is thwarted or when face to face with improper, unjust, or offensive behavior. Then the voice is raised, the face becomes contorted, and the flow of blood in the veins becomes rapid. These are all symptoms of anger.
So here again, what's the starting point of desire? Like and dislike, rag dvesh, right? You like something, you repeatedly like something, there's an attachment that gets built up, and that attachment leads to a desire to want that, or a desire not to want something. And when you don't get what you want, or you get what you don't want, it results in anger and irritation. Now, the fascinating thing about desire and anger.
Abhinav, can you start one more time? I just slipped, if you don't mind. So sorry.
Sure. What is the starting point of desire? The starting point of desire is rag dvesh, like and dislike. So if you are in a habit, or one is in a habit of constantly saying, I like this, I don't like this, I hate this, I love this, even though these are words you're using for a pencil, or I like this pencil better than that pencil, you're in a state of mind where you're constantly creating the foundation for desires to sprout up, which is why we always say in Gita, be very careful of rag dvesh, because that is the starting point of your desires coming to manifestation. Because when you like something, you get attached to it. When you get attached to it, it leads to desire. It leads to calm. Now, if you don't get your desire, it leads to irritation. It leads to anger. Or if you get the opposite of what you desire, it leads to irritation. It leads to anger.
I want to talk about 262 to 63 here. This is perfect place to talk about it.
So yeah, I think, yeah, why don't you read it? Why don't you get Rita to read it itself?
It will cause confusion when we go. So we'll just talk about it, right? So 262 to 263 is exactly what Abhinav just touched upon. These two paragraphs, they relate back to the slippery slope to hell. Okay. So 262 to 263 talk about.
Does anyone with a new book, if you have a page number, it will help everybody else.
69.
Page 69, guys.
So here they say, how does that, how does it all start? It all starts from where your thoughts go to. What do you think about? Where do your thoughts stray to when you are, doing nothing else, right? And that is very, very important. As your thoughts dwell on any objects of your senses, whether it is a gross object like a car or a bike or whatever else it may be, or money, or whether it is something more subtle, like what was that person saying to me, or how did that person behave in certain situation, or what happened last evening, right? Whether it is at a subtler level, at mind level, or whether it is at a gross level of an object, as long as these are, if you're thinking about these things, it will create a longing or an aversion, like, oh, I don't want to experience that experience again, or I don't want that thing because it's so bad, or I want something because I like it, right? It creates a longing. A longing is still at the mind level where there is no action that has been done. But that longing slowly builds itself into a desire. A longing, when it becomes a desire, you actually start taking actions in that direction in accordance with that desire. As long as you're not taking any action, that till that time there is no desire, it is still at the space of longing. Longing becomes desire when you think about it long enough. You start impelling yourself into action, and then that action will cause you to either get what you want, which will cause more greed. Okay, you get something, you want more, you want more. It doesn't stop. You've acquired a 2 bhk, the next thing would be, I want a 3 bhk, then it will be a 4 bhk, then it will be a penthouse or a bungalow. It just doesn't stop. Okay, and we will cover this particular part of greed even further down in the next few shlokas. But if it gets stopped at some point your ability to fulfill your desires will reach its end. Okay, sooner or later you'll always hit a wall where something that you desire can no longer be obtained by you, and that will cause anger, irritation, annoyance. And that anger then causes delusion, because now you're so angry, right? And now you want to get it by any means. That delusion will create, will reduce your retentive power, basically your memory. What memory gets affected? The memory of what is there in the scriptures, the memory of what is right or wrong, that memory gets impacted. When that memory gets impacted, then you will not be able to discern what is the right thing to do, what is the wrong thing to do. And then you are sure shot on a road to self destruction, because you will end up doing wrong things to somehow acquire what you want to, what you're desiring for. This is the slippery slope to hell, which all starts from where you put your thoughts to. Now, in that context, Nam Jap becomes very important. When you are doing Nam Jap, then when you're not doing something else and there is only Nam Jap going on, your mind is not straying to what did this person said, what will happen in future, or what do I do about it, or just randomly thinking about some song, or randomly thinking about some car, or whatever, right? It may be. Your mind gets more, your thoughts, your unnecessary thoughts leave your mind. Unnecessary random thoughts. What you need to think about to do your work, you will still think about it. Yes, Kakul.
So, what I like to understand is, suppose your desire is within your means, like for example, you like paintings because that's creation and they're beautiful, but you may not be able to buy say an original MF Hussain, but you are able to buy a mid-range painter and you love them. You're not doing anything wrong. You have worked and it's your hard work, and obviously you have a desire to accumulate those paintings. As long as you are not doing it in a wrong way or you are not being dishonest, is it still something you need to work on and give up?
So you need to think about where that desire is coming from. What is the purpose of fulfilling that desire? Okay. There is nothing wrong with material objects. There's nothing wrong with acquiring a painting or beautifying your house or having a beautiful house. There's nothing wrong with it. Okay. This end of the day, this material world is his Maya. So that means it is reverential as well. Okay. You have to have a feeling of reverence to it, is what Gita is telling us. So if you want to acquire a painting because you are able to connect to whatever bhav it creates in you, it makes you feel happy, it makes you feel peaceful. Every time you look at it, you feel a satogun rise in you because you're feeling happy and calm. There is nothing wrong with you acquiring that. But if you're acquiring it to be able to show off to others that, oh, I have this MF Hussain painting in my house, irrespective of whether you can enjoy it or not. The only enjoyment comes from other people coming and telling you, wow, like, wow, there is certain status attached to it. Then you're feeding your ego. So, like, in Maya is feeding your ego, or whether it is feeding the self inside of you, helping you connect to the Lord through that, it really depends on why you're acquiring it. Or you may just be acquiring a painting of somebody completely unknown painter, nobody knows about it, just with the bhav of helping that painter. Depends on what that is. If somebody comes and tells you that, why did you acquire it? It's such a crap painting. You spent ₹1,00,000 for this. I could have got this in like 10 rupees from a roadside, right? If somebody says that to you and you feel bad about it, then you should question, like, why, what is the purpose of this? Okay. There's nothing wrong with material objects. There's something wrong with desire, because desire always stems from Rajoguni Bhav. Again, there's nothing wrong with Rajogun. We need Rajogun, right? If your Satogun tells you that you need to cook food for your family for their benefit, if you did not have Rajogun, you will never have the dynamism to get up and actually cook that food, right? So dynamism is important. The problem comes when dynamism, this Rajogun comes in the driver's seat and it becomes uncontrolled. So unbridled, uncontrolled Rajogun creates a life of its own, which will lead you down the path of destruction. As long as that Rajogun is controlled, it will take you to your destination. Okay?
Yeah, I think this naturally brings me to the other point that started this conversation, was the thing with desire and anger is that there are various degrees of it, right? So in this paragraph of anger, in the end, the way it's being described, then the voice is raised, the face becomes contoured, and the flow of blood in the veins become rapid. These are all symptoms of anger, but these are all late stage symptoms of anger, right? So, and all of us have been in that situation. At least I know I have, where I get, when you're so angry, your face becomes heat. You can experience heat. Your heart rate goes up, and in that moment, even though my intellect will ask me to calm down, it just can't. It takes its own life to, like, for it to calm down, right? You can't, like, when I'm that angry, no matter what my brain tells me in logic that this is not worth it, ye wo, it just doesn't work.
It's too powerful already by then.
It's way too powerful. So you can't work on anger at the anger level.
Yeah.
You can only work at anger and desire at rag desh level, like and dislike level. Because if you're not working at the like and dislike level, when you actually get angry, you'll notice it's really hard to control it. It's really hard to redirect it. And you've also, at least the thing that I have noticed with anger is, when I get angry and it releases out of my body, everyone else around me also gets angry.
All emotions have a life of their own, and like with everything else, they want to perpetuate. So if there is anger inside Abhinav, he will want to, or at least me, I want to say and do things that will provoke anger in other people. In fact, one of the things, so I have dealt with anger a lot. Like, I have had, like, for a while, like, I've struggled with anger, and I wanted to control. Like, I would get upset very quickly, and for a long time, I used to, create an excuse for myself by saying that, yeah, I'm like I go up very quickly, but I come down very quickly too. I get angry, then I'm like, I get quickly, I'm an emotional person, I express myself. So I used all excuses to say it's fine to be the way I am. Eventually, by being that person, I came to a point where I would get angry, and then I wouldn't stop being angry for like an entire day. Or then it became 3 days. That would take 3 days for me to come off that anger. When me and Abhinav were dating, there came a point where we would have a fight every Friday, and we would fight the entire weekend, and then Monday we would make up. Like, I think 3 months we had that, at least few weeks, it was that bad that we started to question, like, do we really want to be together? Is this how we envisage the rest of our life to be? And that really caused me to go back and ask myself, like, is this the person that I have become? And this is the person who I want to be. And from there, I started a personal journey of saying that I need to get this under control. It has completely gone out of control. I can't just keep getting angry at random stuff. And it obviously feels very justified when you're angry in that moment. So, and I also realized, like Abhinav saying, by the time you reach the anger, which has been defined here, there is no way to control it. You've lost it at that stage. So I had to go back to start finding out what does anger, where I have to find out earliest possible moment of when I'm getting angry. And it does create effects in your body. So start to recognize early signs that I'm going to get angry now, and start to control it at that level. Not let it go. So, control it when it's still young. By the time it has become very strong, you cannot fight it any longer. Then, though, it's gone. You might as well just let it experience, do something. Then you have to find another way to, like,
yeah. So
calm it down.
when you reach that level, you will find, this is why we actually ask you to do Nam Jap, and we ask you to do Shlok memorization, and we ask you to memorize the invocation shlokas and the closing shlokas, because all of these have such a power that when your mind just automatically goes there, there is a huge calming effect on the body. And and don't underestimate how quickly they get you onto the right track to make you feel complete. Because whenever you're like, I think the example someone shared about being disrespected, you're feeling incomplete. You're feeling like, what did I do to be disrespected? But you start reciting the invocation shloka, the Nam Jap, and you realize, no, I'm fully in whole and complete. I need nothing from sansar or people around me to make me feel complete. So there's no reason for me to be angry. And different shlokas will have different power in different situations. But that's why we stress on memorizing things, because then your mind can quickly catch on to it. Like if you're angry and you just say this shloka a few times, you will see the calming effect it will have. If you just keep saying it, and you'll realize you'll let go of it. It will be a natural way to wind down.
But you'll never be able to invoke it unless you remember it, right? Because you'll get angry anywhere. You won't have Gita book in your hand at that time. So the index has to be in your own head.
And the way to work on it essentially is likes and dislikes. Be very careful. Let's continue reading.
So to my understanding, the entire process starts from your thoughts, what you dwell, which leads to longing. And then if that particular desire is fulfilled, it leads to greed. And if it doesn't, it leads to the path of irritation, anger, etc. And then the aids, as you said, before and after you're in the process, should be doing the Nam Jap, as well as, am I right?
Yeah.
And 2 shlokas a day, Swadhyay, to always remind you what you need to do, who you need to be today. Right? Otherwise, it's so easy for us to get lost in the sansar. And like it's like, we are in a river. When you go and take a dip in Ganga, if you are not being held by an anchor, when people go and take a dip in Holy Ganga, they don't just go in. You will get swayed. You will get taken away by water. You have to hold on to some anchor on the side. There are these chains that are there. You hold on to those chains, or there are human chains that get formed. So you have to hold on to someone else while you go and take a dip. If you don't hold on to something that is immovable, you will get taken away by the sway of water. So if you don't hold on to your Swadhyay, if you don't hold on to Gita, you will get swayed out by water of sansar. Constantly.
Okay. And what is the way out to control that point of desire or a thought you dwell? Let's take an example of, say, I want a mansion or a bungalow. Let's take it as an example. And then I start dwelling and, I start longing. And of course, either I get it or I don't get it. But where is the starting point to stop that very thought or the process of very longing?
So the moment that thought comes in, I want a mansion. The first thought should be, why? What is the purpose of it?
Hmm.
Right? Is there a purpose of getting that mansion so that you are able to bring more people together for a satsang, for some higher purpose? Or is it because you want to be able to show off to friends? Or is it just because, oh, I'll feel like I have more space and it looks good or whatever, right?
Hmm.
Each one of these answers lead to a different part of our internal psyche. One
Okay.
from higher purpose and self, where we are expressing and becoming a greater platform for divinity to manifest itself. The other is ego, so we are strengthening the ego. The other is strengthening uh, our mind and our senses and attachment to sense objects. So each one is different. And this question can be asked with everything that we want. Could be from clothes, could be from food, could be from.
So let's say if I want it for sattvic reason, it's just not for the world, not for the ego, not for show off, but it's just something I want. And probably if I introspect, it could be I have a bigger space for myself, or I have to use, can I use the space for, as a platform where I can even support. Let's say I have a sattvic bhav, then, but I still have the deep down desire of wanting this. And I justify or
So the point is that when you start to understand the purpose behind that particular desire, then you stop thinking about that object that will lead you to that purpose. Hold on to that purpose instead. And then you realize that either that particular object may fulfill your desire of that purpose, or some other way will come around. As long as you're not holding on to that object which you think, the method through which your purpose will be realized, God will make sure that if your purpose is right, that gets fulfilled. So I'll give you an example, very, very close to the example you just raised right now. So when we were looking for a house, like when our previous house was demolished, we had to look for a new place. Okay. So one of the primary things that we were looking for in a house was a big living room, because we used to always have Gita classes. These satsangs were always in person in a person's home, and as the classes became bigger, it became more and more difficult to accommodate everybody in smaller living rooms. Okay, so we were like, we naturally have to have a bigger house. We have to have a house with a larger living room.
Not a bigger house, a bigger living room.
We started with bigger house. That was the first thought that we had. We need a bigger house. Then when we started asking the question why, we realized we don't need a bigger house as much as we need a bigger living room. So then it isn't about 1500 or 2500 square feet house. It is about whether the structure is done in such a manner that the living room will accommodate so many people or not, right? So we started looking for it from that perspective. Then I used to think about that, okay, at some point of time, we will have to facilitate a class and we will have to invite everybody home. So Bhagwanji, please make sure that, when I started off with Bhagwanji, please make sure that we find the right house and you're looking for it. And then I came to a conclusion that no, I want to be able to facilitate a class properly in a manner that everybody is, everybody gets a comfortable way to come to that class and there is no inconvenience in that class. Guess what? We are now facilitating a class where you don't need a house at all. It is all Zoom. It doesn't matter whether I'm sitting in a 5 square feet house or a 1500 square feet house, right?
No,
so Bhagwanji, from my perspective, I always remember this as that as long as you hold on to the purpose, that purpose may be fulfilled in many different ways. If I held on to it, no, I want a house because I want to facilitate a class with 20 people being able to attend there, then I would be very sad by now, right? Because I don't have a house which can accommodate all the people in our class today. But we are still, that purpose of being able to be in a class with so many other satsangis, that still got fulfilled.
So the story actually gets more interesting. The agent that showed us a class, his name is Kishan, who was a synonym to Krishna. So we took that as a very strong sign ki, acha, ye ghar is worth it. We liked, as soon as we walked in the house, we knew this is the house.
We didn't even know that guy. But he approached us.
He approached
me. That
me.
was the fun part.
He approached me and we took it seriously. We came.
You are Vedant's father? Like, yes, I'll show you house. Did you go and see? Like, it was like so strange, right? The way the serendipity happened. We were like, what?
So we walked in, we know this is the apartment. Long story short, the apartment we stay in, the reason why we can have these Gita classes on Saturday and Sunday is because 6 months after we moved in, our immediate neighbor was another Indian family with another boy who's 5 years old, whose name is also Vedant. So when Vedant is not running around naked in our Sunday class in the background, it's because he's in their house and they're taking care of him, and he has his friend there and he's very happily working. So the Lord works in mysterious ways. Attach yourself to the purpose of why you want to do something.
And he will find the vyavastha around it. Like how will that thing happen is in his hand. And it may not always happen the way you envisage your results. You think that, oh, I have to solve this problem and I will do ABCD. It may not be the most efficient way of doing it. He'll find the most efficient way of resolving your problems as long as your purpose is correct.
So I understand is every desire you need to dissect and know what exactly is the reason, and then leave it to the universe to manifest in whatever form it means, right?
Yeah.
Okay, because
The purpose, not the object through which that purpose is being.
What did you say? The purpose, not the
object.
Not the object through which that purpose can be realized.
Okay, fine.
Right?
Thank you so much, brother.
Should we finish reading this now? This will also take time. It's already 12 plus.
Oh, it's already 12. Okay.
So should we?
We can read this because the three gunas real enemy, we've actually already covered it. So
Okay.
just finish reading.
Let's finish reading and then we'll do the closing shlokas.
The three gunas of nature in sentient nature is constituted of three gunas, sattva guna, rajoguna, and tamoguna, as already alluded in shloka 27. On the ascendancy of sattva guna, there is the feeling of perfect contentment, peace, and enlightenment in the mind. The tendency to acquire objects of worldly and sensory enjoyments or to increase those already acquired is called rajoguna. Tamoguna is the quality of inertia which is manifested in the form of delusion, aversion to duties, and indulgence in meaningless activities. In this shloka, desire and anger have been said to be born of rajoguna. Real enemy, ordinarily persons or entities thwarting one's wishes are regarded as one's enemies. In this shloka, the Lord says a person's real enemies are the impulses of desire and anger which arise in the mind. If we reflect carefully, the conclusion will be inevitable that these impulses of desire and anger are the real enemies. It is in a truism that if anger is allowed to reside in the mind, there is no further need to court any other enemy in the whole world. In this shloka, the Lord calls these enemies to be all-consuming and insatiable, and these are the sworn enemies of a person because they instigate the person into sinful activities. Many people think them to be natural in certain conditions and so feign helplessness. But anger is not a part of a man's innate nature. It is a manifestation of an animal instinct. These thoughts arise only when the innate divinity is suppressed and animality accepted instead, consciously or otherwise.
Yeah. So I think that's the last part is again just a very important reminder that never come into a state where you justify anger, because then you're justifying the lowest form of your nature, which is the animal nature. So anger in all its forms, even the slightest irritation, should be treated as a warning bell to reflect and say, why? What hidden desire, what hidden rag, dvesh am I getting attached to? It's a warning bell for yourself rather than something to get irritated about and project onto the world.
And another important thing is going back to the example that Anupama had raised earlier. If we feel irritated by something or somebody or something happening outside, or we feel anything like that, right? Always remember, as is inside, so is outside. So if a situation is occurring outside, suppose somebody came late to a meeting, okay? I shouldn't be feeling angry about that person. Look at him, he's so late. I should be going back to myself and ask myself, where all have I been a time waster for others? That is why I'm experiencing this today. If somebody is saying something rude to me or has been angry at me, go back inside of you and ask yourself, where is that anger and violence sitting inside of me? And take it out, weed it out inside of yourself. As you weed those activities, that whatever you don't like outside of you, go back inside and search it inside of you, weed it out from inside of you, and the external manifestation of it will also go away from your life. We'll stop here.
We'll do the closing shlokas. Om Sarvesham Swastir Sarvesham Shantir Sarvesham Purnam Sarvesham Mangalam Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramayah Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukha Bhag Bhave Om Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Om Shanti 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 Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om